My name's Scotty. I run the shop called Vaperizzo. We just won an award.
My name's Professor Green. I'm a rapper and I've just done my thing on the stage.
His name's Scotty, my name's Professor Green. My journey into vaping is a really easy one to get to. So Scotty is the guy responsible for me ever getting into vaping. Scotty lived with me for a little while and he used to vape. I was a smoker. And I always thought, like what I'd seen vaping, the only experience I'd had with vaping was seeing people with really big mods, loads of vapor bellowing out, and it didn't really take, and I didn't take to it when I looked. It wasn't something I was interested in. Scotty has a vape shop, Vaperizzo, so I was like, okay, let me get my head around this. Tried vaping, was like, it's all right, but I wasn't into all the flavors. And then Scotty just said, well, all right, well, why don't we make a vape lineup? And that was how Unruly was born. For me though, vaping was integral because it stopped me smoking. You know, it stopped me smoking then, it's continued to help me not smoke now. Even now when I'm vaping less and less nicotine, it's still something that I do. And if I'm ever out and I find myself in a place where I fancy a fag, which, listen, if you've ever been a smoker, you'll always be a smoker. In the same way that if you've ever been an addict, you'll always be an addict. You know, there's always that risk and there's always that, oh, I do fancy, you know, I've had a few drinks and everyone's gone outside for a cigarette, so I want to stay on my pals, but I don't want to smoke. Oh, but I do fancy a cigarette. I just reach for my vape.
For me, on my side, most people just ask me, oh, tell me the story about Professor Green, how did it happen? And I just tell them what happens. Was it 3 a.m. on it in the kitchen?
Probably about 3 a.m. in the kitchen. I probably had a fag in my mouth at the time. Now, for me, like, I just, you know, the conversation normally starts with, what's that, a USB stick? I'm like, what's that, cancer? Listen, we still have the images of once idols, still idols. The idea that, you know, Kate Moss with a fag in her mouth looks cool, James Dean with a pack of Marlboro in a rolled up sleeve, you know? We have to get beyond that. We know what the implications of smoking are now. You know, what people don't often realize is that nicotine is less toxic than caffeine, right? It's all about method of ingestion. We have to start disassociating nicotine and smoking. Smoking is incredibly carcinogenic, but that in itself is where the problem lies, smoking. You know, vaping reduces these risks almost immeasurably. You know, it would be if it wasn't for the fact that we can measure it and we can see the benefits. I can tell you just by how I feel, how much better I am for not smoking, how much better I feel when I wake up in the morning. I don't wake up in the morning coughing up a load of black shit. You know, I've gone through that process and was able to go through that process while I was vaping, which allowed me to do it, and not just to stop smoking and then fall back into more familiar habits, but to actually quit, to no longer be a smoker. First and foremost, if you're gonna vape, it's no different, right? We're looking at what you're consuming, it's consumption. Make sure you are vaping something that it has the accreditations that it needs, you know, that isn't full of shit. First and foremost, like anything, if you're gonna vape something, make sure it's good quality. You wanna know what you're putting in your body. Secondly, stop smoking, it's shit. You stink, you know, you smell. I don't, unless I stand next to you while you're having a cigarette, which I can now smell 6 times as much because I don't smoke anymore. Also, think about your well-being, man. You know, I'm not saying that vaping is something that you want to take to and then become an addict of that and use that disproportionately, you know, but if you need help and you want to stop smoking, this is a brilliant way to stop doing it. Sorry, I'm still plugged in.